Oh, please. Hi. Welcome to this first session. I'm really excited to have you all here. So, I'm Rachel. I'm a trans woman and vocal coach. I've been teaching vocal feminization lessons for around about the last 3 years, independently and as part of Seattle Voice Lab. And you can find me at the minute on Fiverr and the Trans Voice. I'm soon to launch transvoice.com and really excited to be here. So for me, my voice was one of the main things that held me back from transitioning for years and years and years. I really felt as though my voice was something that would never really be where I wanted it to be, and that I didn't know if I'd ever be able to get it comfy, to be able to be confident out there and about in the world. But I'm here today to let you know that voice is so plastic, it's so malleable, there's so much that we can do with it. And hopefully by the end of today, you'll have all the info that I wish I knew when I was starting off this process myself at the start of my transition. So my voice originally, my voice dropped when I was like 13, 14. I was one of the first people in my classes to have like a deeper voice, and well, it just kept on going down. So for me originally, when my voice started out was right the way down here. And I felt, yeah, no, there's no way that I'm going to be able to shift it up to where I want it to be comfortably and sustainably, but with enough work and knowing how to manipulate your voice, I want to leave you on the place where you're more in control of your voice and your voice is less in control of you. So over today, and we're going to go over a bunch of different topics. I won't be able to give you a full rundown of everything we need to do to get your voice from A to B to C, but you should have much more of a clearer idea as to where to go and how to begin to work with your voice. We're going to be talking about anatomy, how the voice kind of functions. We're also going to be talking about these big three variables in voice, those being pitch, resonance, and vocal weight. When we get all of these different things together, dialed in where we want them, then we can sound fantastic. We can have more control over how we sound. So this lesson will primarily have a trans femme focus, but there are some techniques that you trans mascs out there can also use to be able to have a more affirming voice for yourself as well. Throughout the lesson today, if you want to take notes, that would be absolutely fantastic. And if you've got any questions, I'll be breaking regularly to have a few Q&A sessions, and there'll be a big Q&A session at the end as well. So jot down any questions as they come to you, and we'll have a bit of a chat. So the first thing that I want to let you all know is something on safety. Nothing that we do together should hurt. If you find that in working on your voice or in using your voice more long term, you have any aches or pains, it's a really good idea to stop what you're doing and to message either myself or a professional involved with voice to see what could be going wrong. This whole idea of no pain, no gain in a lot of different things, and voice work is not like that. Similarly, when we're doing exercises, the purpose of vocal exercises is not as much to build muscles or to start to build tissues inside of our throat, but it's more to find control. So it's not like we do 100, I don't know, voice sirens, and then eventually we've got all the muscles. It's more about control and listening to your body. So as you go on through this, something that's really going to help you to be able to discover your voice more safely is listening to your body. If you find that after using your voice is really kind of hoarse, as if we're just being like to a concert, again, that is a sign that something is going wrong. Please do stop what you're doing and let me or another professional know. Some other things on voice as well. If you find that you have any unintended changes to the overall aesthetic of your voice, i.e. if you find that your voice is wavery, if your voice feels weaker or more airy than it did before without your control, again, this is a sign that something wrong could be going on. If you can't get quite as high or as low, as loud or as quiet, or really any unintended change to the function and feeling of your voice, please do stop and let me know. Vocal injuries are very preventable, and I haven't had one yet, touch wood, and I don't want anybody here to be the first. So please do listen to yourself, listen to your body, and if you find that anything feels a little bit off, let me or another professional know, and we'll be able to help you out with that there. Oftentimes, vocal injuries come as a result of a bit of a perfect storm. So for example, if we've been talking all day at work, then maybe we go out to a noisy bar or a cafe and we have to really project our voice for a long period. Then if we get a cold or something like that, or a flu, or coughing a lot, all of these different things can contribute to what may result in a vocal injury. If you feel that your voice needs rest, give it rest. If your body overall needs rest, if you're quite tired and the stresses of life have got you down, it's like, oh my God, take the day off. This is a marathon and not a sprint. The best way that we can develop our voices sustainably and healthily over the months that it takes to get to where you want to be, then there's really, really best to chip away at the mountain slowly than to practice all at once on a Friday and not touch it for the rest of the week. So some other things, some more trans-specific things here. Can I get a show of hands? Is anybody here on spironolactone at all? Anybody? Yeah, I see a couple. Cool. Okay. So spironolactone is an anti-androgen that has quite a few drying qualities. It's part of HRT for trans feminine people. Now, a really important thing in the voice is hydration. So do keep up with your water, especially if you're on spironolactone, because it does make you go to the loo a lot and drain out all the water that you've got in your body. So do keep hydrated. Some other things that will help to look after your vocal health are not smoking, not vaping, reducing alcohol intake, reducing caffeine intake. I know I always get like a grumble at that one, like, oh gosh. But we want to reduce these things to really get the best results for your voice. Now, is it strictly necessary? Not really. When I was discovering my voice, I was, drinking quite a lot. I wasn't in a good place, and I was smoking regularly as well. I was still able to get to where I was, but it's riskier. So don't take the same risks that I do, and you'll have an easier time to discover your voice if you stay away from these things. A few other things that are really going to help us out here in discovering your voice and working with your voice are warming up your voice muscles. So there are lots of different ways that we can warm up. We'll talk about some exercises today that are really going to help you out to be able to get rid of that dreaded morning voice and to get more control over your voice overall. But another thing that's really going to help is water or a warm tea. The vocal folds live inside of our larynx, right here in our throat. And when we drink water, water actually never touches the vocal folds. It goes round the back, down the esophagus, and they never come into contact. The vocal folds are one of the last tissues in our body to be hydrated. So it's really good for us to drink a pint of water an hour before we practice. And first thing when we wake up, your body will thank you for it. So before we go on, does anybody have any questions of vocal health or anything of that nature before we dive on into talking about what's going on with voice? Yes, Simple. Hi, Simple Pleasures. How can I help?
Hey, so I'm
Hiya.
a vocalist, I growl and I metal scream. How would that
Mm.
affect with transitioning?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So, funnily enough, the skills that you use in vocal screaming to get different pitches out of a screen, they're really going to help out in resonance training. So, you're probably already going to be doing some great practice to be able to control your larynx and the tone of your sound.
Oh,
But vocal screaming in general, it can be quite traumatic to the vocal folds if done incorrectly. Now, there's still research being done on this here, but the best thing to do is, I'm not a metal vocalist specialist, so talk to somebody who is. They'll be able to assess your technique and to be able to see if there's anything that you can do a little bit better. One thing that's going to help, though, is staying nice and
thank you.
relaxed in the throat. Perfect. Lovely. Any other questions on vocal safety or
Thank
anything
you,
like
thank you.
that? Yes, the Sharis. No problem. It's my pleasure.
Yeah,
Hi.
so you were talking about obviously drink water and teas. This is probably
Mhm.
going to sound like a silly question, but are there any particular teas that would like help relax the vocals?
Yeah,
Like
absolutely great
caramel,
question.
green tea?
For sure. Thank you so much. So, in general, tea is going to actually really help our voice because it physically warms up the tissues that are inside of the neck and inside of our vocal folds here, everything that's going on. So, any sort of warm liquid is going to help us out, but specifically, honey and lemon tea can be really fantastic for our voice. It can help to reduce inflammation, and it's really, really good. So,
That was great. Thanks
Singer's
for honey and
favorite,
lemon tea.
honey and lemon's great. Great. Any other safety questions before we move on? No.
I've
Great.
got
I
one.
don't think I've missed anyone. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Where are you?
Small avatar. Sorry,
Hi.
down here. Small
No
avatar.
problem. Hiya.
I heard. So I've practiced voice therapy on the Discord server before and whatnot. I've
Mhm.
heard from a few more experienced people on an emphasis on that temperature point that say
Yes.
before doing voice therapy, drinking water, especially like room temperature water, is more. It's better for safety than it is drinking cold water. If
100%.
this is
I would
true or
agree with that
not.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So cold fluids, they will kind of, well, it'll cool down everything inside the throat, which is the opposite of what we really want to do. I know for some people, warm water is like drinking TV static and it's not very nice, but if you can, room temperature water is going to be great. Okay. Any final questions before we move onwards? No? Cool. Thank you all so much. And if anything does come along, oh, hi, Quay. Is that a question? Hello. Oh, no, sorry, Aurora. Hi. I missed you there. You blended in really well with the person behind you. Hi, what's your question?
What time of day? Uh,
Mhm.
what time of day is the best to begin training and stuff with voice?
Yeah, for sure. Great question. So, if you've been talking all day, if you've got a very vocally demanding job, like in a call center or front facing customer service, or teaching, like I am, it can be quite difficult to then, if your voice is already feeling tired, do your practice at the end of the day. So, if that is the case, if you're a very heavy vocal user, it's probably best if you do that before your big chunk of talking. Outside of that, though, if you're not, any time in the day is fine. The thing is that when we first wake up, we're going to have something called morning voice. Now, what happens is that when we go to sleep, our vocal folds, which are this lovely two tissues that live within our larynx here, we'll see some of this later on in the presentation. But the vocal folds, they stay open, they tuck themselves away with a lovely duvet or comforter of mucus, which is really gross. And that kind of catches all of the dust and crud that we breathe in over the night. So when we wake up, we're dehydrated, we don't have as much blood flow going to the vocal folds, and there's all this heavy mucus that's on them as well. All of that will contribute to a voice that feels like, oh my God, like I'm just not able to get the sort of sounds that I normally do. You might feel that your voice is actually lower than it normally would be, that you're able to achieve lower tones. Best thing to do is use some of these exercises that we're going to talk about later today, especially these SOVTE exercises. Look out for those. Just 10 minutes of that at the start of the day are really going to help. But apart from that, any time is great. Awesome. So we're going to move on a little bit here. Thank you so much. There are some great questions there. I really, really appreciate it. And if anyone's got any more questions on safety, please do jot them down on a piece of paper and let me know at the Q&A at the end, and we'll have a little bit of a chat, because I really think safety is so important. The last thing that I would want to do is for anything that I teach you all here to cause any sort of problems, any sort of damage to yourselves here. We have enough going on with our lives being trans folk. So vocal injury is the last thing that I want for anybody. Okay, do so safely. And there's one more little note on safety, and that is relax. As you explore your voice, it can be tempting, especially as we try and get to these higher notes, to really squeeze our voice. We don't want to do any squeezing. We want to keep our neck, our shoulders, our face, our whole body like jelly if we can. Keep everything nice and relaxed, and that will also help to reduce the chance of any sort of vocal injury. Wonderful. Thank you all so much. I really love teaching here. It's really lovely. I love this outdoor space and seeing you all. It's fantastic. So moving on from that, I want to talk to you all about this wonderful diagram that I've got on the screen here. This is something called the power source filter model. Now, the power source filter model is a conceptual model to think about how the voice physically works. This is going to really help because I think that one of the main first steps that we should take with working on the voice is understanding the voice. The voice is one of the only instruments that we play that we can't see. So it's a really good idea to know it inside and out, literally, to see what's going on and where. I find that the more awareness that we have on how our voice works, the more awareness we can have in crafting our tone and our voice. So it really does help out. Now, Down the bottom here, we have the power. This is where the story starts. This is from all of our breath. This provides the kinetic energy, the movement of air that is required to get your vocal folds moving. Now, the power, it's driven by the lungs, but more specifically, a big old belt-like muscle underneath the lungs. Begins with a D. Does anybody know what it is? Please shout it out.
Diaphragm.
Diaphragm.
Any guesses?
Diaphragm.
Yes, yes, yes. Ding, 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 ding. Great. So the diaphragm is the start of this story. And as I say, it's a big old muscle that lives right underneath your lungs, and it separates your heart and your lungs away from all the guts and bits and bobs inside of your tummy. So the diaphragm, when it contracts, it moves down and we start to draw air in. And then when it relaxes, that air starts to rush out of our lungs. There are some other muscles involved, but the main thing here is starting to be more aware of your diaphragm, and that when you're starting vocal exercises to really breathe in. I'd like you all to try this with me. I want you all to place a hand gently on your tongue, and then I want you to relax your abs, relax any tension that you've got in there, and take a really big old breath in for me. And you should feel that your belly moves right the way out. As the chest cavity expands, all of the organs and stuff get pushed downwards, and this is a great place to start when we're starting with vocal exercises. It's not to say that when we go on to talk, we're like, okay, I'm full of breath, and then I'm going to have a conversation. It's not quite like that. But for these exercises, having plenty of air is going to be really, really helpful. 9 times out of 10, when I see that somebody has a problem with voice production, it often comes back to the breath. So really try and question yourself, what's going on down there? Do I have enough breath? Am I breathing in my sentences often enough? What's going on with that air? Because without the air, there is no voice. So moving on up from that power, we then have the sound source. This is the vocal folds. These are the vocal folds. These are what vibrate inside using the air to be able to make our sound. So the way that they work is that there's 2 different pieces of tissue, and they make a lovely V shape, just like this. If we imagine that this over here is our throat, we can see this V shape in here. Now, the vocal folds, they have 2 different positions. They can be either open or closed. When they're closed, they look more like this. They're just meeting in the middle there. Okay? So when we're breathing, nice and open. When we cough, when we kind of do that sort of thing and feel a build-up of pressure, or on the word oh, you can feel that the vocal folds come together. Now, when we use our voice, the vocal folds just gently nestle themselves against one another, and we start to move the air through. It's kind of like when you were a kid. Did you ever do this thing where you'd have like a little reed of grass and you put it between your hands and give it like a little doot, like anything like that? Does anybody know what I'm talking about, or am I crazy?
I do.
Great.
Yeah,
Lovely,
yep.
great. Perfect. Good.
Never do it.
So this, yeah, just definitely crazy. So this is what really happens with our voice as well. We put these 2 little bits of grass together that are in our throat, and we start to make them vibrate as the air goes through. Now, when we change our pitch, these vocal folds actually stretch out in this sort of direction. They physically get longer. When the pitch goes down, the vocal folds will come together in the middle. This whole thing will kind of move like this. Okay, and that's going to be our pitch. So there's a lot of stuff going on inside of the sound source. Let's take a little bit of a look with the visuals here to see what's going on. Now, I want to let you all know that I'm going to show you a picture or a video of inside of the throat to see what the vocal folds look like. If anybody's a bit squeamish of that, just a little bit of a content warning. It is pretty fleshy down there. So if anyone's bothered by that, please do look away. I'm going to take a look at this now. Let's see.
There's no screen. Like, I'm on Quest.
Yeah, I can't
I'm
see
watching on
it.
Discord as well.
I think I'm the
Oh,
only
you
Quest
can't?
user
Oh,
here,
no.
probably.
With like the phone.
Why?
For
and then
some of the
you'll see
Quest
the
users,
thing.
if you guys are on Quest, you have to go on the Twitch stream, unfortunately.
On
Thank
the
you
Discord,
so
okay.
much.
Which I'm doing.
Okay, apologies everyone, but yes, you'll see this lovely diagram and stuff, but hopefully, no worries,
I'll
thank
do
you for
that.
letting me know. I'll be able to bear that in mind and explain a little bit for all my questy besties out there. So, let's take a little look here.
Bestie.
Here's what the vocal folds look
Oh
like.
my
It's pretty
God.
gruesome. I know. Oh my god. So here they are.
Jesus.
It's really gross, I know. Welcome to my world. So the vocal folds, they're only about the size of your thumbnail. They're really tiny. But they produce all of the different pitches and all the different sounds, mainly, that we use within our voice. Now, they will vibrate anywhere between 80 and 1,000 times a second. They are fantastic little pieces of kit. And this is where all the sound comes from. As I say, when the pitch goes up, those vocal folds stretch out. And when the pitch comes down, they're going to come together. Okie doke. So, moving out of the vocal folds, I want to show you something a little bit different here as well. Going back to this power source filter model, we then have the filter. This is where the sound is shaped. So, this idea that sound is alive. It's kind of like water in a way. If you were to fill up a glass of water, put a stick in it, and put it in the freezer, you'd take that ice out, and you'd have a lovely glass-shaped popsicle. Well, the same is true of our voice. As we put our voice or any sound into different containers, it will change the nature of that sound. So, for example, over here, I have a little glass, and if I start to talk into this glass, you can hear that the kind of tone of my sound changes quite a lot. Similarly, if I was to cover my mouth up, or to speak through a little tube, all these things are going to change the quality of my voice, and inside of our bodies is no exception. The sound is produced in the source, and it travels up through our throat, up through our nose, up through the mouth, and out of the lips, and this changes so much about our voice. We talked a little bit earlier about this idea of the big three variables in voice, that we have pitch, resonance, and vocal weight. Well, in the filter, this is where all this resonance magic is happening. Now, unfortunately, with the scope of today's lesson, we aren't going to go into resonance, but in our next session, I hope to really dial in and focus on resonance to give you all some great exercises and a lot of different tools that you can use to assess how you are with your resonance and how things are going. But for now, what I want to let you know about is that the bigger the space is within our throat, the darker sound is going to be. The smaller the space is within our throat, the brighter the sound is going to be. So, for example, if I keep talking on this note at the minute, and then I steadily make the space within my vocal tract really big, the space within the throat is huge, and now we're going to start to make the space smaller and smaller and smaller, and then here we are. So my pitch didn't change. My pitch stayed exactly on that note, but you could hear that I almost went from a feminine voice into a masculine voice, then back into femme. So resonance is a fantastically powerful tool. I would argue that it's one of the most powerful tools, but that's not the focus of today. We'll take a look at that a little bit later on. So, going back to the sound source, we've talked about pitch, how high or low the voice is. There's also this vocal weight. I like to think of vocal weight as kind of the amount of oomph or drive that's within the voice, how hard or how soft the voice is. So I want you all to imagine, if you're cat people, dog people, whatever your favorite animal is, I want you to imagine your favorite little creature in your hand, and I want you all to give me a little one of these with me. I want you to give me a really nice, really soft, can anybody give me one of those all together? Lovely, perfect, woo, great. And you can feel just how soft that is. That's wonderful, guys. I love this. Absolutely excellent. I never normally get to have this sort of interaction when I'm teaching, so this is perfect. Thank you all so much. Yeah, it's good, isn't it? So, our vocal softness, our vocal weight, that's when our vocal folds are kind of coming together really softly. The sound is lighter, it's breathier, it's overall softer. Now, let's go for the opposite. I want you to imagine that creature again, and it is so adorable, but it's just thrown up all over you. It is grim. There are chunks. It is terrible. I want you all to give me a really nice please, on a 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Amazing. It's everywhere. Oh no. So that's it. Thank you all so much, everybody.
For
So what you'll
sure.
feel, what you'll feel is that the voice gets a lot more pressed. That the voice gets a lot more heavy, that it gets a lot more buzzy, and you'll also feel probably a lot more vibration that's going on inside of your throat. So as we go from this you can hear the weight of that kind of going up and up and up and up and up. I would argue that vocal weight is probably the third most important. I'd put resonance up top, pitch underneath, and then vocal weight down the bottom, but it still is really important. Now, I know for a lot of us that have been training our voice for a little while that we may have heard we want to move all the vibrations from down in our chest up to our mouth and throat. Unfortunately, what this has resulted in for a lot of us is being like, I need vibrations. Well, I'm going to give some vibrations then. And we start to have a voice that feels very vibraty, that feels, there's a lot of buzziness going on up here. You heard my voice crack there because it's really hard. You can feel all these vibrations, but it's not quite there. So this is something that I hear a lot with my transfem students that have been practicing maybe a little bit solo. And some of you may recognize this within your own voices. The main ticket here is to soften out as we go through this. Softening our vocal weight has a few different advantages. It helps us to sound more femme. Typically, when we have a lower voice,
if I'm talking down here, I'm used to talking with a thick voice, because if I need to get my voice moving and throw it across a room, hey-o,
then it needs to be really thick. If I try and make that same voice
of a low pitch with a lot of thinness, with a very light voice, then
it's very hard to sustain. We make lower voices with thicker configurations more easily. And similarly, we make higher voices with lighter, softer configurations more easily as well. So not only will it help us to sound more femme in and of itself, but it's also going to help us to access these higher notes a little bit more easily. So to recap, we've talked about this power source filter model, this idea that there is the breath, there is the sound source, and the filter. If we were to apply this model to a different instrument, let's say maybe a guitar for an example, the power would be my hands strumming away. The sound source would be the string that's vibrating. And then the filter would be like the body of the guitar. So again, power, source, and then the filter, where the sound goes. Okay. So we've talked a lot about theory right now, but let's talk a little bit about some different exercises that you can use. We're now going to kind of switch gears a little bit and get into some more practical stuff, which I'm sure you've all been waiting for. So how do we get our pitch higher? How do we start to work on our pitch? And where should our pitch be anyway? Let's answer that question first. There are lots of different voices that exist there in the world. Loads of different voices. If I was to draw like kind of a standard distribution curve, like a big old bell curve with lots of different voices, of course we have the average up here, but there are plenty of viable, valid voices that will get a she, her 9 times out of 10 that exist on the fringes. The thing is that pitch is going to really help us to be able to get a she, her more often on the phone, more often in our day-to-day lives. Pitch can be really, really important. If we have agility of our pitch, if we can move around throughout our range, then it's going to really help us. So I get you, I hear you. There are lots of voices that will work great at lower pitch, but if we're working on it, why not challenge ourselves? Why not work on that pitch? And this is how to do it. So for our masculine voices, they're typically going to take place around about 80 hertz to about 160 hertz. Hertz is a unit of measurement. Imagine if it was just like pitch numbers is hertz, so vibrations per second. So mask voices take place around 80 to 160 typically. Femme voices take place around about 150 to 300 on the higher sort of end of things. But again, there are differences. Scarlett Johansson, for example, she speaks with an average of 150 and goes down to 120. There are plenty of voices out there. Instead of following a pitch tracking app and being like, oh my God, I need to get my pitch high religiously, listen to what's happening to your voice overall. To begin to work with these exercises, we're going to take a look at SOVTEs. Okay, so let's write this out. Can you all see this pen, by the way? Even my questy besties out there, can you see this? Is that all coming through?
Blends in with the screen a little bit.
That's a
Yeah,
good
it's a little
point.
bright.
Yeah,
Oh, good.
no problem. Okay. No worries. Well, we'll do this next time. So, S stands for semi, O stands for occluded, V stands for vocal, T stands for tract, and E is exercise. Semi-occluded vocal tract exercises. Semi-occlusion means partially covered. So we're going to kind of be covering our mouth, our lips, our throat, and finding different ways to increase pressure within the voice. So if you imagine that our voice, this lovely power source filter model that we've got going, there's air rushing through, I want you all to imagine your voice as like a garden hose with the tap turned all the way on, the faucet even, and there's water rushing out of that hose. If you were to go ahead and put your thumb over the end of that hose, what would happen to the pressure? Would it go up or down? If everyone can point for me, what's going to happen to the pressure inside of that hose? Yep, I see a lot of ups. Beautiful. Great. So the pressure is going to build, and the same is true of our voice. If I'm talking, then I cover my mouth, then I cover my nose, you can feel that pressure build up. Now, there's a really smart dude called Ingo Tietze. He's kind of the father of a lot of modern voice science. He came up with this idea that if we were to use different pressures, different amounts of back pressure in the voice, then we can create a safer environment that can teach us how to use our pitch better, how to get more bang for our buck out of our equipment here. So that's the whole idea. Semi-occlusion, partially covered, vocal tract, everything from the larynx to the lips, and exercise because, well, it's an exercise. So I'm going to make a series of sounds here, and I want you all to join in with me. Some of them will be a little bit tricky. I'm going to go first, and I'd like you all to join along with me. Let's go for this one first. It's going to be a nice old sound. Can everyone give me a nice old Beautiful. What a gorgeous choir. Fantastic. The next one is an as in November. I love this, by the way. This is great. So the next one's an N as in November. Can everyone try give me a nice old please? Beautiful. The next one is a Z, as in like buzz. Can everyone give me a nice old Z? The bees. Oh, the bees. Yeah, no, perfect. Oh, the bees, please. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. The next one is a V, as in television. So it's going to sound like this. V. Yeah. Perfect. Everyone can give me a big old please. Yes. Kind of like a pressure washer, right? Just like great. Amazing. You're all fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, we got a couple more to go through. Some of you won't be able to do this one, and that's absolutely fine. It's going to be a rolled R, so we're kind of like living our inner Spanish life. It's going to be like a... Can everyone try that one, please? Beautiful. Great. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Absolutely. Big in Italian. Great. Okie-doke. We've got a couple more. We've got a V as in victory. Can everyone try that one for me? Yes, yes, yes. Beautiful. And we got 2 more to go. Thank you so much, everyone. The next one is a lip trill. Now, this one's a little bit tricky, but we're going to make a noise like a horse. We're going to relax our lips. We're going to push them forwards, and then we're going to start to move air through them, just like this. Can everyone try that for me, first of all? Yes, you're all naturals. Amazing. Beautiful. Now, the next thing we're going to do is get our voice moving. And again, I'll go first. And I'd like everyone to join me. Yes! Beautiful. That's absolutely perfect. Can you all give yourself a round of applause? That is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much.
Yes, everybody, keep your controllers.
Love it. You all did great. Education. You did great. So, really, really, really good stuff. We've got all these different noises. There is one more, but you won't have the equipment, I imagine, to do this at the minute. And if you're wearing a VR headset, I'd advise that you didn't. But I have in my hand here a glass of water. It's about a pint size, or around about 500 ml for us Europeans out there. It's about a third to a half of the way full. And I've got a regular sized straw as well. What I'm going to do is place the straw halfway in the water, and then... Can everybody hear that?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we're going to hum through it. And it sounds a little bit like something I know, but... We hum through that, and that one has the most pressure. Yeah, absolutely. So all these different sounds, they go from light pressure to a heavier pressure. And what they do is they help our vocal folds to align better. They help to teach us how we're going to use our breath more effectively. And ultimately, they're going to create the sandbox that we explore to get our pitch higher and higher and higher. Now, I would say that you only need to really get your pitch up to around about a C4 or around about 260 hertz to have a fantastic voice. But if you want to go further, you can. So, there are a few different ways in which we can use this exercise. The first is to use one of these sounds for a good 10 seconds, something like this. You get the picture. So 10 seconds on a note. What we would do is that we would choose a note, and just to check with everybody, can you all hear this okay? Oh, hang on. That didn't work. Can you hear this all okay? Is that working? Beautiful. So I'm using a little app on my phone here to generate tones. Yeah. This is an app called Voice Tools. Some of you might be familiar with it. But what it's got on there is a lovely little tone generator. So it's got all the different notes, all colored for mask range and fem range. And you're going to be able to use one of these notes, then match it, and hold it for those 10 seconds. Okie doke. And you'd go higher and higher and higher. As I say. So that's one way that we can use it, is for sustained 10-second long intervals. Another way that we can do it is with some of our favorite songs, maybe. So if you're just kind of sitting there jamming along some tunes, then you can sing along with this exercise as well. Another way that we can do this is going up in intervals. We call these fifths. Now, what I'm going to go ahead and do is, after this is all finished, this lecture is finished, I'm going to upload a bunch of these different intervals for you to listen to. Okay, so that you can play this audio and you can follow it along note for note. But what we would do is something like this. And we then move it higher. And again. We'd move it higher and higher and up. Now, one easy way to kind of find these different intervals is to listen to it as if it was like an oh-wee-oh, wee-oh. Now, everyone know that tune. I don't know what it's from. I don't know if it's like Wizard of Oz or something, but it sticks in my noodle. And so that's the way that you can find these. You can move that pattern upwards. And again, up and up and up and up. Using these exercises for around about 5 to 10 minutes a day will slowly give you the tools to be able to get higher and higher up. Again, remember that when I started out, there was nothing special about my voice. I wasn't like an amazing singer or anything like that. I was just somebody who had a pretty low voice. By using these different exercises, we were able to move our pitch. I was able to move my pitch up and up and up to where it is at the minute. Alrighty. So I'd love to know, does anybody have any questions on some of the organized chaos that we all just took part in? Does anybody have any questions about these SOVTEs or these pitch exercises at all? Any questions? I'm going to start over here. Yes, hi, Sharis. What's your question?
It's just with breathing. What do you recommend doing? Breathing through your nose or through your mouth? Is there any particular way you'd recommend for when trying to do the vocal exercises, or
Great
talking in
question.
general?
Yeah, 100%. I would recommend through the mouth. It's going to be easy. You can get a greater volume of air. With my nose, it's going to take a while. For casual breathing, the nose is fantastic, but for getting more of a volume of air going on for these exercises, it's going to be through the mouth. It's quicker and easier, more efficient. And when I'm talking, I don't know about you all, but I'm definitely breathing in through my mouth. And I do a lot of talking for a living. So, fantastic question. I'd go in through the mouth first. Any other questions on these SOVTEs? Thank you so much. Anyone, if you can give me a little bit of a wave as well, because sometimes the motion helps me to see who's got their hands up amongst all these fantastic avatars. Any questions? Yes, Kami, hi. How can I help? Oh, no, it's sorry, yes. Hi.
I was trying to redirect you.
You did great. You did too good of a job. So, how can I help Sarah?
What was the name of the app you mentioned? I didn't quite
The app
catch
is
it.
called Voice Tools. Absolutely. It's freely
Okay.
available. Voice Tools is what it's called. Now,
I'd
there
recommend
is
putting that in the
a
description
pitch.
of this VOD if it exists.
Yeah, 100%. There is on that Voice Tools app a few different tools as well. There is a pitch tracker. I would say if you are going to use a pitch tracker, do so while using a microphone that's plugged in. You're going to get a much more accurate response as to what your pitch is doing. Yeah, absolutely. So by using these SOVTEs, we can have our pitch go up and up and up and up. Hi, Morgan. Have you got a question as well? Oh, it was just your avatar.
No, I was stretching. I'm sorry.
You're so fine. You're so fine. So, anybody else? Shout out if I've missed you. Yep.
Ben here again.
Any questions?
Hi.
Hi. Oh, yeah,
Ben
tiny
here
one.
again.
Hello. What's your question?
Yeah. So when starting with sort of voice training, should people
Yes.
start at a more like comfortable lower pitch, or should they focus on, like, say for example, some people have they're more comfortable at a higher pitch, some people can only do lower pitches. Is it different per person, or should they start at like a recommended base pitch?
You read my mind. That was what I was about to go into. So fantastic. Great question. So for all of this stuff here, we want to operate within our comfy zone. We want to find this Goldilocks zone where it's not too hard, not too easy, but just right. Now, when warming up the voice, SOVTEs, if it's first thing in the morning and you're going through your day, I use these daily. I sound kind of like I'm summoning the devil in the morning. I'm like, in the shower. But we can start low for warming up. Sustained low notes are amazing for warming up. But when we go into higher pitch acquisition and exploring our range, we don't want to go so high that this is happening. Can everyone hear how I sounded kind of squeezed and strainy with that one? Or if I did another one, you can hear this kind of effort to the voice.
Yeah.
We don't want that. That feeling of squeezing is something that we do when we're training our voice, when we don't have quite enough of a control on our pitch. We squeeze to give us a little extra bang for our buck. Throughout all of this, going back to what I said about safety, should all be like jelly. No squeezing, no forcing it, no straining, all nice and easy. So go as high as you can without feeling like you have to squeeze, strain, all that stuff. We want it all to be nice and relaxed. Okay. Another thing that might happen, we haven't talked about this yet, but in our voice, there are different registers. Okay. Now, I know we might have heard of this idea of the chest voice, the mixed voice, the head voice, falsetto. I'm going to throw all of that in the bin for now. We're going to use a different set of things called the modes. We've got mode 0, mode 1, mode 2, and mode 3 if I'm Mariah Carey, but I'm definitely not, so I'm not going to go there. So our M0 is our vocal fry register. The registers are different gears in the voice, each of which have a different access of pitches and a different sort of sound profile to them. So our M0 is going to sound like this. It's our vocal fry. And again, just because it's so fun, can everybody give me a nice old please?
I didn't know we were playing Phasmophobia.
Beautiful. Yeah, right? Beautiful. Woo! So I often say to my students, that's fantastic, everyone. Beautiful. Okie doke. So I often say to my students that it's kind of like a grudge noise. I'm now getting to the age where people are telling me that they've never heard of the grudge, which makes me feel ancient. Yeah, right? They're like, the grudge, what's that? I'm like, oh, Gen Z, why? But this M0 is our vocal fry register. Now, this is going to be really useful for if having more of kind of like a Valley Girl aesthetic, if you want that sort of aesthetic. It's also really useful for making it sound like, oh my god, my itty bitty vocal folds, they can't go any lower than this. It kind of gives this illusion of difficulty in the
why
voice.
it's called a Valley Girl accent. I'm from Long
A
Island,
Valley
New
Girl.
York, and I sound
Yeah.
exactly the same.
Exactly. So we have a lot of vocal fry in that accent, but for the majority of our voice, we don't want to be using it a huge amount. We then have our M1, which is our regular old speaking voice. Okie doke. So our M1 is everything for me from Then on top of that, we have our M2. This is what we would normally call our falsetto voice. It's kind of like our, think Mickey Mouse, take on me, all of that stuff. Now, these different vocal registers, they all have a different sound profile. They all have a different characteristic. You want to stay in your M1 most of the time when you're using your voice, for 95% of the time. We can feel this M2 is kind of having like a hollow sort of sound. It sounds fluty, kind of like an ooh. If I try and talk in this, even if I get my weight and my resonance like right on the spot, it's really hard to get a voice that sounds authentic. It's very difficult. You can get some great high notes,
If I could
but
just
it's
cut
not
in
where we
here,
want to be
that's what
basing
most
our
people
voice.
think of when they think of the trans voice. Like, oh, this is my totally normal voice. And it's like, you can tell that it's not. So if you want to stay in your M1, I may not be a vocal expert, but that's absolutely the best way to think of that, is what my opinion is on that.
100%. Absolutely spot on. So our M1 is fantastic for the majority of our voice. We can't get loud with our M2 either. If we're trying to yell, hey yo, it's really hard. If I want to project my voice, hey yo, then I'm going to have to use my M1. 95% of my voice in M1. Now, it's not to say that M2 is the devil. It's not to say that M2 is super bad. It's really, really good as a little bit of a pitch extender. So every now and again, I'm going to go right the way up there and just have a little bit of a spice on there. It helps me to extend my range past what I'm able to do in my M1. Going back to these SOVTEs, if you feel like you're going to a point where it's cracking a lot and you're finding that it keeps on flipping into this M2, then take the difficulty down a bit, take the pitch down a bit, work there. We want to work, as I say, where it's anywhere between a 6 out of 10 to maybe like a 7.5 out of 10 difficulty. Now, I know those units are arbitrary, but what you are looking for is somewhere where we don't have a huge amount of problems, where we don't have that much tension, where we don't have the voice cracking, and work there. And slowly, over time, I've seen it time and time again with my students. If you work at it and if you keep doing this regularly, you will be able to grow your M1 higher and higher and higher. Don't be fooled
Would you be okay
by
with
this
me
idea that
interjecting here 1 second? Because I also learn languages, and I'm learning American Sign Language. So it's just like that, in the sense that if you try and learn it too fast, you can very easily get burnt out and burn out your voice. And
This is very true.
it very quickly becomes an extremely tiresome effort, and you will lose interest in doing that. So just take it slow. It's not a race. This is not a race to the finish. There is no finish line. We're all practicing every day. And if you have a lower voice and it takes you a longer amount of time, that's perfectly normal. Just don't think that you have to go fast or slow or any set speed. Everybody learns at a different pace. And please don't stress yourself.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Thank you so much, Rowan. 100%. Don't stress yourself. Don't feel like you have to race forwards with this stuff here. It took me time too. You know, as I say, my voice was right on the low side of things. It takes time to be able to grow these skills. It may be that over the course of you developing your voice that you have different iterations of your voice. I definitely did. When I started with my voice, I was on Discord talking to people. Then I started in VR chat. I spent so much time in VR chat just talking, practicing, and listening to myself. And it really, really helped. And over all of that time, my voice got better and better and better as time went on, slowly chipping away at the mountain, nice and relaxed. 100% couldn't agree more. I would say that actually, I thought that I was done with my voice training like 2 years ago when I was training other people and helping people out. But oh my gosh, there's so much that I'm able to do now that I wasn't able to do back then. So it will keep on growing. Be patient with it. Take little recordings as you go along and check in with them, and you will be amazed at the progress that you will make. Often, just like with many things in transition, if we are looking at ourselves in the mirror every day, we don't see the little changes that come along. But then we meet someone who hasn't seen us for about 6 months and like, oh my God, your face, what, that's crazy. So check in with yourself, make recordings, and that's going to really help you out there as well. So I'd love to know, does anybody have any questions on pitch work, these SOVTEs, or any final questions on this topic before we move on into another little thing here?
Squish would like to know that her voice doesn't get tired when she's like speaking at school. However, when she's like singing or reading, it gets tired very quickly. And she was just wondering like if there's like an explainable reason for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know if Squish is using perhaps a different kind of configuration, a different amount of settings in the voice when they're using it at school as opposed to at home singing. But it likely is that when they're reading, when they're practicing, when they're singing up a little bit higher, it could be that the pitch has changed. It could be that they are straining more. I'd have to really listen to that individual case to be able to see what's happening exactly. But I would say listen to your body, listen to what's kind of happening here. Does it also happen if you do this on the weekend before you've been at school all day? Do you feel like you're getting tighter? Do you feel like things are getting a little bit squeezier? There's a lot of questions to ask, and I'd have to have a listen, but great question. And thank you as well for pulling a question from the Discord. I'd love to know, are there any other questions on the Discord at all from this so far? This is all you on the Discord. If you can fire them at me, that would be fantastic.
Yeah,
And
there's
if anyone
another one
could
if you like to
go ahead and put up their hands for them. Yes, please.
So,
Yeah, what is
let
it,
me
please, Mombi?
So Ayaku Kazuki asks, how can you make the SVLETs to project your voice?
So projection is something that's a little trickier. Now, currently, I'm not comfortable teaching projection on a group level because when we start to project, what we're going to do is we're going to have a lot more force in the voice. So if there are people that are using a technique that isn't great, then when we start to apply that force, if they're in a pitch range that is not the best for them, when we start to project and apply that force, it may be that we have more of a chance of doing ourselves a mischief. So for the time being, I'd like to put that question on the side. If you would like to book in a private session with me to be able to find out how to yell and keep it up there, I would love to be able to help you on that one. And again, you can find me over on Fiverr at the minute under Trans Voice or soon on transvoice.com, or shoot me a message on the server. I'm on the Discord as well. But projection, great question, but not for today. Thank you so much. Any others from the Discord, please?
I'm just gonna do one more. Lillian asked,
Yeah,
what
for
if you
sure.
want a deeper feminine voice? What would you do? That's the question. Yeah.
Yeah, great question. Absolutely. So, if we want kind of like a huskier, kind of lower voice, it's something that is absolutely available to us. What we need to do is take, of course, the pitch down a bit, but also decrease the weight. We want it to be really nice, really soft, really breathy. We also want to have a great control of our resonance too. The way I like to think of it is if we have these big three things as pitch, resonance, and weight, if we bring one down, we may have to accommodate with the other two. So with regards to pitch, we want to bring down that vocal weight even more because that pitch is going lower, closer towards that masculine range. So take the pitch down. Sure, you want to be aiming for a consistent 150 hertz. I wouldn't go any lower than 110, 120 hertz because that is far less typical in feminine voices, is to have that low of a voice. I would also say that as you go down lower, and this applies to everyone here, as we start to use our voice, what we want to do is give an illusion of difficulty as we go down. So you'll hear me do this all the time as I start to kind of bring my voice down lower and lower. Oh my God, my itty bitty vocal folds. I'm starting to reduce that weight, get really nice and soft, and also bring in that M1 a little bit more as well. Both of those things are going to give that illusion that, oh, it's so hard for me when
We know.
that isn't the case. We know we can go lower, but to a listener, it really, really helps
I
out to
hate
craft
my
that
deep
image of
voice. It sounds
difficulty.
like a radio DJ from Long Island. Introducing this week's Super Bowl.
Love that. Absolutely.
Sunday,
That's it. Is that
come down to Tizzy's vocal class so that you can speak like a girl.
would recommend. Great. Absolutely. So we're going to have a lot of different ways in which we can use our voice, but crafting that illusion of difficulty is really going to help out. So one little final section before we wrap up and open up the floor for questions once more with anything voice related, trans related, I'm happy to help. How do we practice? So far today,
Before you
we've
continue,
talked about
though,
these
there is someone that
SOVTEs.
has a question in the Discord. I am going to get them to ask it one more time, and I'll read it off to you. Sorry. 1 second. They're typing.
It's all right. If it's all right, Rowan, if we could pause that until the Q&A at the end, that would be fantastic, and we'll open up back up for questions. I just want to wrap things up and bring things home. Thank you so much, though. Thank you. Sure. So we've talked about a bunch of different stuff today. These SOVTEs, thank you, are mainly a way for us to be able to expand what we can do. But how do we bring this all together? How do we start to work on the voice? Well, what I would say is focus your practice on one little thing at a time, be it resonance, be it weight. Try and keep all the other variables the same. Read something to yourself and see, okay, if I'm focusing on weight, why don't I keep my resonance and pitch the same? You can read something like the Rainbow Passage. When the sunlight strikes raindrops in the air, they act as a prism and form a rainbow. Try a heavier weight, try a softer weight, and listen back to yourself and try and find something that works well for you. There are different stages in this journey for all of us. There is a discovery stage where we're trying to learn these different techniques with the voice and be able to access different ranges. There's going to be the stage where we start to put this together into something that we maintain. We'll often see that when we enter that stage that the voice is just going to start dropping, and we're going to not be able to, over long periods of time, keep the voice where we want it. Keep on going with it. With practice, you'll get it nice and steady. Then we want to kind of use it out there in the world and make sure that we can use this if we're anxious, if we're nervous, if we're meeting new people, all these different environments where we want to be able to use our voice. So explore, develop your range, develop your skills, listen back to yourself, record often. I know it sucks. I know dysphoria is a B. I know. I've been there. I am there. I know what dysphoria is like. It sucks. But it's really good to listen back to ourselves here. If you can, one final little tip here is to get yourself a Blue Yeti microphone. I am a big shill for Blue Yeti. The reason is because you can hear yourself live without any sort of delay. You'll be able to plug in this microphone here, and you can plug in your headphones into the mic, and you can hear how you sound in the world without any sort of interference. When we talk normally, our voice will conduct through our face bones, through our sinuses, and we'll get a very scuffed image of how we sound. So listen to yourself live. Your voice will thank you for it. Righty, everyone, that is me coming round about to the end of my talk today. I want to thank you all so much for coming along to this one. It's been an absolute blast. I've loved teaching here. And I'd just like to open the floor for some Q&As and also that Discord question as well, to ask any other questions for the last 10 minutes. So, Rowan, do you have that question?
I was told to not worry about it.
Okay, no worries. Any other questions? Please do raise, shake your hands. I'd love to be able to help.
In the meantime, come on.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
This is a good time.
I appreciate
Maybe this is a good time to show everyone here the sign language sign for applause, because if you can't hear, why would you clap your hands? Better for controllers, just do this.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone. It's been a lovely pleasure to be here. I want to thank you all for spending your time with me here on a Sunday. It's been a blast, and I want to let you all know that there's one thing you can take away from this is that you can do it too. There's nothing special about me or my voice. It's just hard work and practice, and I see it all the time. There's no age that you need to be. You know, I've taught people right the way up to 65 plus, and they've had fantastic results. As long as you give yourself patience, give yourself love, give yourself time, then you'll get there. That's the whole idea. Any other questions before we wrap up? Yes, great. Hi.
Okay, this time I do have one.
Yes.
Maybe do we have like a list or something of all the exercises? Because there was quite a few, and I can't remember any of them. Maybe for the
No
people on the
problem.
Discord
I believe I was
too,
told there would
if you
be a
could maybe
VOD.
There's a
post
YouTube video. Yeah, my question was I want to make sure I pick up
Yeah,
everything.
so there'll be the
too,
YouTube video.
Stop stealing my blog.
What I'll do is I'll put all the SOVTEs in the chat. I'll also give you all a tone file with all these different fifths, so I'll be able to have both of those. There was also that exercise with vocal weight. This isn't something that you need to necessarily work on. Once you've got control of that vocal weight to be able to make your voice soft and have your voice be thicker and weightier, then you're good. Then it's all about just using that control as you talk. So I'll put those SOVs up on the server, SOVTEs, and yeah, that's great. Any other questions, please? Thank you so much.
We have one on the
Any other
Discord. It's
questions?
okay. I have a question. So,
Oh, sorry.
given we
Yep.
pull higher
Oh,
tones,
sorry. I'll go to.
right,
Yep.
it becomes harder to talk as it uses more lungs capacity. How to speak in higher pitch without having bad quality muffling or blowing on the mic? Not sure
Ooh,
if
interesting.
that's phrased in a... Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Number one, I'd say try and move the mic out of immediate direction. You can get yourself a pop filter as well. That could really help out. You may accidentally, as you are going higher, be getting too breathy. That is a possibility. It sounds like it could be. This is something that I'd love to be able to hear you, to be able to find out what's going on, because it's not exactly typical, but we can take a look at that. That's no worries. Thank you so much for that question. 1B, did you have one as well?
Oh, that was a question that I was going to relate.
That was it. Great. Any others? I saw a hand around here somewhere. Yes. Hi, Sheriff. Yes.
You can just call me Ash. It's okay.
Oh, thanks, Ash.
It's
Great.
just,
She's so adorable.
Thank you, dear. It's just like, I think everyone has this when they're in public and they're trying to test out their more feminine voice. Is there any recommendations? Because I know when I go shopping, it's like, oh, how are you? It's like, you just kind of don't want to talk, but
Yeah.
how would you be like any tips you recommend that can you're not
Yeah,
you're
for
waiting
sure.
in line to talk to someone that you can do yourself in terms of like breathing exercises or anything, or any of that vocal training yourself?
So, great question. Absolutely. So, as I understand the question, it's kind of like, how can we get a more consistent voice when we're out and about in the world and where nerves might be a problem, where anxiety might be a problem as well?
Yeah.
There are a few other ways that we can get that. I'm right there with you. When I was doing my voice training, I had this voice that crafted, that I had friends in VR chat who only knew me with this voice. Then when I came out at work, it was just like, oh my God, I'm getting too nervous and my voice is dropping down to the floor. So part of it is just overcoming that, is setting yourself little goals and challenges. Can I go to the coffee shop, have a brief interaction? Can I go to the store, have a brief interaction, and build it up? Some other things that can help are practicing those specific phrases. So things like, hi, how are you? Hi, I'm doing great. Yeah, can you show me where the is? Those different sort of questions that you can just go back to, that if you've drilled and practiced over and over again, that can give you much more of a sense of confidence and a firm cornerstone to blast off with the rest of your voice afterwards. So hope that helps. Yeah, thank you for the question again, Ash. Really appreciate it. Any others? I saw one more over here, and I'm going to work my way around to the right. Anyone? Ariel, yes, hi.
Yeah, so I feel that this was a very incredibly informative lecture here. My
Thank you so
question is
much.
more just about the I feel like I'm still a little bit unsure about the process. I guess so we're going to be doing these exercises mostly every day, the SOVTEs, and then basically just listening to our voice. Is that sort of what you were intending to say?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of different routes that we can take when we're working on a voice. These SOVTEs are primarily aimed and targeted towards people that may not be able to get up to 260 hertz in their M1 to begin with. After you can achieve that goal, after you can get up to that point with your pitch, SOVTEs become more of a thing for warming up, to get rid of that morning voice and to get your voice to be more fluid. After that, it's going to be a case of listening to your voice and finding out what's happening. Is my pitch sounding too low? Am I not able to go as high up? When I go up, am I getting really squeezy? How's my resonance? And resonance is a huge topic. I could spend 4 hours talking about resonance. Resonance is a big topic. I'm going to talk about that next time. With my private students, I spend anywhere between 2 and 4 lessons to make sure that people have the skills and the understanding and integrate this in. But I would say start small and begin to work with speaking with your voice a little bit higher up on reading something, moving your pitch around, trying it monotone, getting used to speaking up there, having conversations with people online. And then ask yourself, what's happening? Does it sound like my resonance needs to be brighter? Does it sound like my weight? And oftentimes, a small consultation with me, I can kind of point you in the right direction as to where your voice quality is and where it could be, to give you more personalized feedback. But yeah, it's a case of developing those big skills and then integrating them in and crafting that voice more and more. So, great question. I hope that helps. Perfect. Anybody else here? Anyone over on this side? Yep. Hi. Anyone here? Carly, yes. Hello.
Hi. You said next time, so there will be a next time, or?
Oh, there's gonna be a next time. Absolutely. Yes, we're planning to make this a more
There's a
regular
reason
thing.
for this world,
I'd have
after
to.
all.
I hope you.
Yeah,
Yes,
no, this is a
100%.
very nice world.
Or more like just the same course over and over again?
Uh-huh.
Will it be some
To
kind
be
of
decided.
follow-up,
I mean,
or?
what I do currently is with my other job at Seattle Voice Lab, I provide a 4-weekly rotational curriculum where we take a look at pitch specifically, then weight, then resonance, then inflection warm-ups and putting it all together. I may use that same format over here of going 1, 2, 3, 4 and alternating it. I tend to find that works pretty well. But we'll see. Great question. Watch this space. It's the best answer I can give, but thank you so much. Hext, hi. I think I might make this my last question because I'm running a little bit over time.
Rin's
How
actually
can I
got a
help?
question.
Oh, great. Hi, Rin. What's
Hi.
your question, please?
Alright, hi Rachel. So I want to ask that
Hiya.
from, I want to ask that from your experience, how did you know that you've made it, that this is the voice that you want, that you've achieved?
Yeah, great question. So I feel as though there are kind of like 2 questions here. One of them is, how do I know when to stop? And another one is like, how do I know where to go or where I'll end up with my voice? I feel they're kind of embedded in one another. So what I tend to find is that although people might have some kind of like more vague goals, like I want to have a huskier voice, I want to have a a brighter, girlier voice, I want to have something that sounds more womanly. What we tend to find is that when people start to experiment and start to use their instrument more, that the voice kind of emerges, that we start to get this habit coming out and it all kind of coagulates rather organically with this tone. It's less of a intentional design thing of like, yes, I'm going to have Scarlett Johansson's voice, and more of a, let's see what I can emulate from that and what comes out of my instrument. Everyone's instrument is different. I do believe that everyone can do this, but everyone's instrument is different. So be open-minded and listen to what comes out and develop it more and more. Now, with regards to assessment and knowing when I was done, well, I initially thought that I was done when I was regularly getting a she/her on the phone. So I was talking to insurance companies and restaurants and things to see how they gender me. This is a really nice way that we can get impartial feedback where they don't have any sort of visual cues and we can just see on our voice what's happening. So I do that until I kind of got like a 95% rate of she/her, and then I felt that I was done. But then again, on the years since I was at that point, my voice has changed a lot too. So we're never really done. I think the voice always kind of evolves. And it's all a personal journey. For some of us, we don't really care about getting those she/hers. We just want something that makes us feel good. All totally valid. There are all sorts of valid ending points. And, I'm a big trans advocate. I don't believe in having to maintain yourself or make yourself into a smaller box that is societally approved or like that is cis-esque. We are whoever we want to be, and whoever we are. And so there are a bunch of different endpoints. It's kind of a personal question often too. For me, it was getting those she hers on the phone, but it continues to change. I hope that helps. So I'm going to make that my last question. But thank you so much again for everything, everyone. It's been an absolute blast. It's wonderful to be here. I'm getting all emotional. Oblige. Thank you. Blowhigh. I don't know how to pronounce it. Thank you all so much. I've been Rachel. You've been great. Thank you all so much indeed. Give yourselves another big round of applause, please. Thank you.
Break those controllers. Break the controllers. Yeah.
Thank you all so much.
$60.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Well, I'm going to leave it over to this one here, and I'm going to head off.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much indeed,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Take care. I'll see you soon.
Thanks, Rachel.